Okay, quick music disclaimer here. I do not own the rights to this music, which belongs to the rightful owner, who is the intoxicating mind of Dr. Frankenstein. So he made my intro and my outro, and I hope you guys enjoy. Check them out on Spotify and YouTube, and no copyright infringement is intended. Have a good day.
A clear choice of good versus evil, of right versus wrong.
Twisted Tales.
This man is 57 years old. He's poor. He can't read much more than a comic book. Borderline retarded. That's what a psychologist says. He spent the last 4 months in jail, and he still doesn't know why.
Well, I realize a little bit, but I don't know if it's anything, I don't know too much to learn, because I didn't do anything to learn it. I just live day by day like I always did. That's all I done. I never done anything wrong or anything.
This gonna make any change in your life, having gone to prison?
Well, I remembered and all that, what I done. But I don't know to go or can't learn much more than you learn, because I didn't do anything to learn by.
In jail, they called him a pervert. That's because he's one of the Golers, the family clan from the South Mountain that was jailed for sexually abusing their children.
Welcome back to Twisted Tales, folks. So tonight's little tale, it's going to be a special request. Now, this one's from my good buddy Kirk from back home. Now, he thought I should do a tale on the infamous Goler clan. Now, most of this episode's going to be pretty cringe, and will probably be a little bit too much, but let's get going on this. So, today we'll talk about a rural family well known for intergenerational poverty, sexual abuse, and incest. So I'm going to fire this one off. So thanks, Kirky. This bud's for you, bud. And this one's going to be about the Goler family. The Goler family are based in the community of South Mountain, Nova Scotia, a rural community, and the family's well known for being strange, and they've actually caused a lot of trauma for many people within the region. Sexual abuse ran in this family for generations, most cases involving minors, mostly aging from 6 to 14 years old, and all were part of the family. Now, a lot of people call back home God's country, but amongst the midst of it all, South Mountain near Wolfville will be known as Goler country. So Wolfville's like a Canadian town in Annapolis Valley. It's Kings County, Nova Scotia, pretty much. It's about 100 kilometers northwest of Halifax, and roughly with a population of 4,195 people. It's mostly a tourist destination, because of great views of Cape Blomidon, the Bay of Fundy, and Gaspereau Valley. It's a very prosperous place, known for Victorian homes, and it's pretty much a lot of bed and breakfast spots. But back in the day, it was also a place known for the Goler family. Now, the family had lived in shacks and tents in terrible conditions, sometimes with about 20 plus people shoved into, like, the little shacks. And it was so isolated that there wasn't even any running water in this highly wooded area. So located on South Mountain, which is just located south of the community of White Rock. The Goler ancestors occupied this area very highly since the mid-1800s. Sociologists of Acadia University had traced incest within the family dating back to at least the 1860s. The family mostly lived by themselves in the woods. Even though the town was not far from them, they kept to themselves, and the townfolk didn't bother with them. The townfolk knew they were a little weird, but they kept it at that. The adults had some intellectual disabilities, had very little schooling, and they lived mostly off the land. So they they'd hunt, go for berries, go to streams for water, and they'd also just pretty much just collect welfare checks. But they also did odd jobs at nearby farms, and the children did other mediocre tasks, like dishes, preparing food, throwing out and removing trash. Now, they used the attic of their small shack to store their garbage. Once it became full, the children had the task of removing it from the household. So living in squalor wasn't a big deal for them. The shacks that they resided in had no running water or bathrooms, and the children, they all slept on like a single mattress on the floor. So just hellish conditions. So the family had done some horrible deeds to the children. The long ongoing abuse, it involved mostly all the family members. And the mother, the father, there was uncles, aunts, sisters, cousins, and this all included relations with each other. Now, some people say that the family couldn't decipher right from wrong, but the abuse to the children couldn't be overlooked for long. And the abuse carried on well into the 1980s, where the news of the horrors would soon come to light to the townfolk, the police, and everybody else in the media. And it would just turn out to be one of the most bizarre cases and talked about cases of incest in Nova Scotian history, where newspapers would print headlines of the inbreeding from all over. And nobody could believe that it went on for so long, that it just went on for generation and generation. The family members of the Nova Scotia clan line included Charles and Stella. Now, these were the two main of the family. Stella being the boss of the family, they had 9 children together. Eventually, the children went on to have children of their own, all while keeping it inside the family bloodline. In total, Charles and Stella had 14 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren between their 9 children. So that's pretty messed up. But the reason most of this shit came to light was that a 14-year-old girl in the family, Sandra Goler, broke down in school crying, down to the point that the teacher took notice and had intervened. The crying little girl told everyone that her father had been using her as a wife, abusing her and raping her at least 15 times a month. The teacher questioned the young girl and notified Child Protective Services, the school board, and then the authorities. She mentioned that her and other children members of the family tried to mention this abuse to the adults prior, but the claims weren't taken seriously and were mostly shrugged off by others. When the authorities were called to school, so was a social worker from Child Protective Services. The social worker, being from the Vancouver area, took all the little girl's words very seriously, more so than the people in the area did when she tried to speak up prior. She was placed with Child Protective Services and not at home with her parents. So later on, it was kind of learned that not only did the younger family members get raped and sexually abused and whatever, but the older generation also went through that when they were that age. It was a vicious cycle. Like all the family seen it as was a way of life. Members of the family didn't even know most of what was the reason why police were at their home, or what the charges against them were. They had limited vocabulary, and at tops, like a 4th grade education. But one of the family's members was asked if they knew what the word incest meant, and the man replied, insects. And the word was repeated again, and the family member just replied with a no. And I'll play a little clip on that here in a sec.
For months after the charges were laid, the Goler case was the talk of the town.
I would say there's something they were brought up with that's been down from generation to generation, and they think they didn't do anything wrong.
Well, they may have known it was wrong, but they done it so high. Nobody ever told them different.
It's an awful thing, and I don't condone it at all. I think those people should be all given everything the law can pass out to them.
It's gross. Well, I mean, those kids It's terrible. I mean, those kids didn't even know what was happening to them, really, and it's a shame. It shouldn't be happening.
If they're found guilty, do you think they should go to jail, the Golers?
I think so. I mean, they say some of them aren't even in their right mind anyways, but if they're guilty, they should go.
However, there were many people in the Annapolis Valley who felt that the Golers had been punished enough by losing their children. Now, they needed help.
They shouldn't go that hard on them. They shouldn't send some welfare workers in there maybe straighten things out. But as far as putting them in jail, that's kind of crazy because they've been doing it for years. They just need to be straightened out on.
I don't know. If jail's just not the place for them, I think they should be sent into an institution somewhere where they get, more help.
Lawrence Kelly was one of the people charged in the Goler case. His brother was married to one of the Golers, and Kelly was accused of having sex with a 12-year-old girl. Like most of the Goler clan, Kelly had never been in trouble with the law before. He has a grade 3 education, can't read or write very much, and he's lived in this one-room shack ever since he was born, 52 years ago. Kelly lives alone. His only company is an AM radio.
Get my dinner. What do you got for dinner? Some bread, tea.
Kelly can't afford luxuries like indoor plumbing because he's on welfare for most of the year. He never complained. He kept to himself. A local housing official says it's this kind of grinding poverty that's the root cause of incest. Cameron Jess.
In this particular case, much of the incest and the related sexual abuse of children that we're seeing is no question related to literally generations of living in acute poverty with no privacy, no sense of involvement in the community as a whole.
When you say no privacy, what do you mean?
Well, I mean like maybe 2 adults, 3 or 4 children sharing one bed, that kind of situation. Often sharing one bed because that's the only way of keeping warm. It is not hard to envisage how these things can happen when people live under those conditions and become so despairing of improving their lot and so cut off from the community as a whole that they literally no longer have any set of values which protect them, shall we say, from that kind of behavior.
In recent years, upwards of 20 people have been living at the Goler homestead. Aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, brothers and sisters. Marjorie Goler. You know what incest means?
I know what it means. I'm old enough to know. There ain't been none of that going on that I could see. And I don't know why they try to make a great big scene of it anyway. It's just because a child went and told lies that they're leading it all around now to every child.
As far as I'm concerned, the people in town or anywhere else probably done just as bad, if not worse. I don't know how this started. I still don't know how it started. One kid started it all. And I bet right now she's sorry she ever started it.
Do you know what the word incest means?
Insects?
Incest.
No.
Like, inbreeding can have all kinds of negative effects, especially if it's being passed down generation to generation, which is a big thing towards deformities. It's why it happens. And the way the genes mix together, like, if 2 relatives' DNA come together, like, there's higher chance for problems in those children. Now, even like most folk think the reason that the whole kids went to school and had low education was mainly for the part that they just keep getting their welfare checks. Now, showing that they were sending the kids to school for education and being a small part of the community, they just try to upkeep that. But interaction and learning the basics, like reading and writing, math, and other academic studies, that sometimes that we might take for granted, the Goler family didn't really have much part in this. And it's definitely a high reason why, behind closed doors, police investigations would actually uncover cases of sodomy, high counts of violent sexual abuse, and torture. Like, these poor children were being preyed on by their own family of adults. Now, the adults had, like, a really high power over them, and some thought they'd never have a chance of escaping these horrors. And, like I said earlier, like, even the teacher finally took their stories seriously. But the cries for help didn't go unheard, so they finally got the help they needed by police and child services. When police finally interrogated the adults of the clan, it's like they didn't even care or fathom the atrocities that they committed. Some would brag to authorities about their sexual escapades, and they showed no mortality for their crimes, most likely due to the fact that the acts that they carried out were just everyday normal things to them, because nobody had told them any different. The trial would be the talk of the town. Some couldn't even believe that these deeds were happening in their own town. Everyone was fixated on the trial. The seemingly small part of Nova Scotia was blown up by the media and became very well known. And the Goler clan that stayed tight-knit for generations were all over national television, and everything came to a screeching halt for them. Like, were the adults just remembering what they were taught growing up? Because the same thing had happened to them. Like, or was it a lack of education? Isolation from the town? Maybe that also played a part. Like, some argue the fact that they didn't know any better on some levels. But I want to go back to where, like, they would beat the kids for telling the town folks about the rapes and troubles. But, like, even when the adults found out, the young kids would be punished. That to me shows that they could decipher right from wrong. But that might not be the case with all the family due to severe mental illness, and some of them. I mean, even in the aftermath of it all, people eventually realized the dangers of isolation. The children were removed from the homes indefinitely and placed in foster homes. Now, Donna Goler, she was a preteen when the clan's sexual acts were stumbled upon. She eventually came to terms with the rapes and abuse, and she went on to be an advocate for children's rights, to keep children protected from pedophiles and child predators. And she fought for the law to provide better protection for young relatives of convicted sex offenders and child molesters. When everything shook down and everything was said and done, a total of 16 family members were arrested. 13 of them ultimately were jailed with various terms leading up to 7 years, and all the children were released to Child Protective Services. Now, statistics show that in legal standings with incest trials, they can lead to a minimum of 5 years in prison. For people who have knowingly committed incest with a blood relative, strict Canadian laws carry a max sentence of 14 years. If the victim is under 16 years of age, the sentence is a minimum of 5 years. Now, the legal system in Kings County, it became really strained over the case. Like, they only had one full-time prosecutor on deck, and he only worked about 1 or 2 rape cases per year, along with a couple of theft and disorderly conduct crimes. But after a few of the Goler clan members were released from jail, many of them returned to the horrible impoverished conditions. More so with a lack of understanding of what they did, or what needed to change. A lot of them couldn't even grasp the whole fact of it. Even during the court proceedings, some didn't even have the slightest clue. But these events are true, terrifying, and tragic. They span well over a century, and that's a long time for all these wrongdoings. The ruined lives in return. And it's just a shitty situation for all. I mean, this whole case opened up everybody's eyes about the whole ordeal of isolation and lack of education. And it's just something that's part of history now. So I hope everybody enjoyed this here, and that's our little twisted tale for tonight, folks. Another one in the books, and I thank you all for tuning in. If you want to check us out on Amazon Music app, you can follow us here on Spotify. Send me some stories via email, and I'll post that in the link there. So stay safe and enjoy your work week, folks. Have a good one. Thank you.
How do you think the community has treated this family here?
Well, as I see it, they've more or less been sort of left out, left to themselves. And I think that it was a mistake.
Why is that?
Well, I think if they had been welcomed in, if they had been invited to activities, both in the church and otherwise, that perhaps this whole thing may not have happened. It might have influenced their life, that there might have been a change.
Now, most of the family members are going to Bible study and going to church. Have you noticed much of a change in their behavior?
Oh, certainly so. You can just see it as their faces light up, and their lives have been changing. They've been slicking up around their place. They've been bathing every day. They've been, there's a complete change in them.
But for Judge Hall and the other judges, it didn't make much difference. Willie Goler, 7 years in jail for buggery, gross indecency, incest. Willie's common-law wife, Wanda Whiston, 4 years for sexually assaulting 8 children. Cranswick Goler, 6 years, 9 months, buggery with a 12-year-old male cousin. Cranswick's sister Josie, 6 months for sexual assault. Her conviction is under appeal. Josie's former boyfriend, Earl Johnstone, 6 months for performing oral sex on a young boy. Josie's sister Mary, 1 year in jail for sexual assault. Her conviction is under appeal. Mary's husband, Lawrence Johnstone, 2.5 years for buggery with a niece. Willie's brother, Tom Goler, 3 years, buggery with a nephew and niece. Tom's former brother-in-law, Roy Hiltz, 1 year, buggery with a 7-year-old girl. Willie's former brother-in-law, Eugene Brown, 2.5 years for sexually abusing his niece and nephew. Willie's former brother-in-law, Ralph Kelly, 3 years, buggery with a 7-year-old girl. Kelly's brother, Lawrence, 1 year, having sex with a 12-year-old girl. St. Clair Jodry, 1 year in jail, also for having sex with a 12-year-old girl. Charlie Goler Jr., 2 years, having sex with a female cousin under 14. Billy Goler got 3 years, despite evidence that he had been the victim of sexual abuse as a child. The judge said he, of all people, should have known better. The old family homestead is deserted now, and society is still adding up the bill. The legal aid fees, the police overtime, the cost of foster care for the children, the cost of keeping the Golers in jail. The bill could exceed $5 million. As for the children, well, one judge predicted that the children would never recover from the trauma after being sexually abused for all those years. However, that doesn't seem to be the case. Right from the beginning, the children got excellent psychiatric counseling, and it seems to be working. Family and Children's Services says that the children are making an excellent recovery. 5 of the children have been adopted by families here in the Annapolis Valley. 5 of the children are in foster homes. However, the 2 oldest children, both teenagers, have had a lot of trouble in their foster homes, and in time they may end up back here. However, for the most part, the children seem to have a much better life. They've gone from a life of poverty to a life of relative affluence, a middle-class life. Now they have a future. However, it's a different story for the adults. 8 of the Golers are still in the Kingston Penitentiary, in protective custody. By and large, they are not getting any psychiatric help. They are described as model prisoners, but they probably won't get early parole because they still won't admit their guilt. But
Twisted Tales.